Since actually been planning. There's been a lot of letters gone in, objections about more, but that is scheduled. They've told me that the planning applications, or told Oliver and I, that the planning is going to go to the planning committee on July the 20th. Yes. July the 28th. So what I would say is that for me and Oliver as ward councillors, this is the problem that we have. In our ward we have got 3 proposed solar farms. So for you in Hooton Pagnell, every road that you take out of this village, you will see a solar farm. So that's, for me, not good. The biggest thing that I'm going on is we need this land for food. It's the best quality land in the area. So that's, you know, where we stand. Okay?
Thanks, Lindsay. So if we can just start by, if we can just circulate this box, and anybody that has got an opinion already, if we get that in there, we can at least then get, it's probably the easiest way for us to understand what the majority in the room feel. So yeah, if you can sign that register, and then just over to you. I don't know, Matthew, do you want to start with your views?
Yeah, shall I?
Yeah, kick
go
off,
first.
Yeah.
Let me pass the box around.
Yeah, pass it around.
So, I mean, my background originally is as a scientist, and I think as a scientist I can't help but say renewable energy has to be the right direction of travel. That being said, for the last few years, That being said, for the last few years I've been a businessman, and the more I find, you know, about the kind of government plans and how this has been executed, the plans are at best badly executed and at worst fundamentally flawed. And for the last few years I've also had the privilege of being a member of this local community, and I think what we have here in Hooton Pagnell and also in Clayton and Marr and Brodsworth, you know, is quite special. And I want to say why I think locally this project is the wrong thing for Hooton Pagnell and equivalently, you know, kind of in Morehouse and Marr. I think the first thing is, you know, if you think about Hooton Pagnell, it's a conservation village, the same with Brodsworth, the same with Hickleton. You know, there is literally 1,000 years of history in all of these 3 villages, and to basically put a solar development, something that is going to be very modern, very metal, very industrial, next to something whereby people have been farming, as Cynthia says, rich, valuable agricultural land for over 1,000 years doesn't really make much sense to me. And, you know, particularly we have a food security problem as much as we have an energy security problem, and you know, kind of basically doing away with food to put energy on the green belt doesn't really make much sense to me. There's a lot of local biodiversity and wildlife around here. You don't have to go far to see birds of prey, owls, snakes, deer. There is no way that you can convince me that by putting metal on the landscape you are going to result in a real biodiversity gain. You might be able to get more, you know, beetles and such if you plant more hedgerows and all that kind of stuff, albeit the council seems very much against that from the kind of initial feedback they've put on the plans. But I think it's common sense that it is going to cause more harm than good to the local environment and the local ecology. I think something else which is really important is actually how industrial it is going to be. It is not just going to be solar panels. There is a big substation involved, but moreover, I think about a dozen batteries. And, you know, those batteries are going to be very big things. They have a fire risk that kind of comes with them. Broadly, you don't really know how much noise they're going to generate and all those kind of things. So again, there's kind of a lot of unanswered questions with battery storage that, you know, really would need to be answered. With any kind of construction, it's going to take a lot of heavy vehicles. I saw today actually 2 big farm vehicles struggle to make it through the village. Well, imagine when you've got dozens of them trying to get to a site off Bilham Lane every day. Broadly, they've got 3 options: come through Brodsworth, which I don't think is a good one, come through Hooton Pagnell, which I think is even worse, or try the best at Hickleton Crossroads, where I think it's probably an accident waiting to happen. So between kind of all those 3 things, or kind of 3 access points, again going back to exactly what Cynthia said, not just from a kind of aesthetic point of view, but actual safety, I don't think it is a very good idea. Moreover, you know, we live in a coal mining area. You know, there are lots of brownfield sites around here. There's lots of industrial sites. There are now lots of warehouses around here, whether it's Next, whether it's Amazon Distribution, you name it, you could rattle off a whole series of them. I understand that a kind of key requirement for putting down solar farms is grid capacity. And it's true, like if you look on Northern Power Grid, like there is scope around here to add capacity to the grid. But it doesn't need to be at this site, it can be added to the grid over a wider area. So again, I would say, why not fill in brownfield sites or industrial sites first before here? I think the other point that Cynthia made, which is a really important one, is there are now multiple large-scale renewable schemes all within a small radius of us. So here in Hooton Pagnell, Morehouse, Mar, an enormous one at Conisborough, which is so big it is going through kind of national planning, and it will be a piece of critical national infrastructure. But broadly it says that you're going to be looking out of your window in more or less any direction, and you're going to be able to see a solar farm most likely. The final bit, the development doesn't comply with Doncaster City Council's local plan, so if they approve it, why they have written this plan makes no sense to me. And the final bit I think is also quite important, which is the actual public benefit of this development will probably be overstated when you think about how much energy they'll actually be able to return to the grid, because last few weeks it's been very sunny, and as a result, you might have seen the article, but over the course of this year the government is going to have paid £500 million to solar farms to pay them not to send energy to the grid. And this is why the kind of government central planning is a bit flawed, in that the generation has been put before grid capacity, which again, kind of doesn't make much sense. So that is why I'm against the plans, as it were, or the specific plans. I do also want to say just a little bit about the specific developers, because I think it's important that you're aware, having done a little bit of research. And then I'll shut up because I've spoken for a very long time. The first thing is, they are a very small outfit. They made 1.5 million's worth of revenue, or somewhere between that, 1.5 and 2 million's worth of revenue last year, but a £10 million loss. And until 2022, they were based on the Cayman Islands. So that probably says something about the motivation. Well, it's totally legal, of course. You can have an account in the Cayman Islands if you want, but it says something about the motivation of the people that are ultimately behind this project. The second thing is, like many of you, you probably went to the drop-in consultation at the cricket club. The people I found there, if I'm totally honest, they were not scientists, they weren't ecologists, they weren't people that could answer questions, they were marketers. And really, I don't know, I won't say whether they have asked today for you to have lots of beautiful literature circulated at a parish council meeting. Again, you can tell us whether that is the case or not. But really, they are marketers, they are not scientists from what I've seen, and probably not even great business people from that point of view. The final thing I'd say is, having read what they have already submitted to the council, it is very clear that a lot of the documents they put in for the screening opinion are simple copy and paste jobs, unless Doncaster Council has become Market Harborough Council overnight. But there's a really important message to take from that, which is the planning is probably the hardest thing for them to get through in reality, because there's going to be a lot of opposition to it. If that is the degree of care and attention they're taking to that, I don't think you want to see the degree of care and attention they're going to take to the land as and when they get their hands on it. So that's my view, and why I am very passionately against. The only other thing I would say is, I know a lot of you might have come tonight being on the fence, or not knowing what the right thing to do or what the right opinion is to have. And I'm not going to try and guide you in either direction, because I can totally understand why people might be in favour of green energy, or they might have kind of more might care about the local environment and the countryside more. That's entirely up to you. The one thing I would say, though, is that indifference will mean that this happens. So if you kind of sit on your hands, don't say anything, they're marketeers, they will take silence to mean whatever they want it to mean. So I highly recommend that whatever your opinion is, whether it's for it or against it, whether it's that you make it heard. But that's all I'd like to say, and thank you so much for listening.
Okay, so open up to the floor. Who else has got it? Michael.
Here. Thank you, Steph. Thank you for your introductions. Thank you, Cynthia, for giving the broader context. And thank you, Matthew, for two reasons. It was very articulate. It also means I don't have to say very much, because I agree with everything you said. I have, just part of my background, I have worked in the energy sector for 38 years. on energy policies. I work for a union, so to be very clear, we support the growth of renewables, ideal with some renewable companies. So I'm not opposed to renewable power, but I'll give you my reasons why I believe this is a misguided and unhelpful proposal. And the first reason is that Doncaster Council has a strategic plan to redevelop the area as a result of the devastation caused by the collapse of heavy industry. Site after site after site has been identified by all political parties on the council. So again, reform, this isn't a party political issue. There is so much brownfield sites connect with good grid connections. In this part of the world, there is absolutely no need to break the rules on Greenbelt and disrupt the environment here and take up valuable farmland. The sole motivation is they think it's cheap. The second issue is that there are far more established and reputable providers building large-scale battery and solar sites. Those of you who know a bit about the industry will know that Thorpe Marsh Power Station has a direct connection to the national grid at 275 and 400,000 volts. This proposal is at 66,000 volts. It goes through the local electricity network. Those sites will be 25 times the size of this. They will be built on a site that has a long established safety process where people feel secure, and this is just a chance of trying to bump schemes like that out. A site that large at Thorpe Marsh will generate jobs. When I spoke to the developers, and I agree with Matthew, that I quite like meeting PR people. I've done it myself, but they weren't exactly overburdened with knowledge about what they were selling. Is that will create jobs at Thorpe Marsh. Not one job will be created in Doncaster. When we went through the proposals, the construction will be established construction firms from outside the area. Even the person who's supposed to come out when there's a fire would be someone who lived outside here. So in terms of benefit to our community, to our city, there are much better proposals that need to be picked up and worked on. And my final point is batteries are inherently dangerous. I look at Charles who deals with the industry, because it's someone like Charles who's got the misfortune to deal with it, not me sat behind my desk. Batteries require constant cooling. When I asked about the backup plan to cool these batteries, I got the answer of, oh well, we'll connect it into the local electricity network at 240 volts. I don't believe there's enough capacity in the local network to do that, but be clear, if a battery gets hot and it catches fire, it is one of the most significant industrial hazards. What comes out of a burning battery is not what you would want to spoil farmland, and particularly if the wind happens. And they said, don't worry, the wind normally blows from the west. That didn't really pacify me, that if the wind happened to blow from the east. I live in the last house in the village, so I'd be the last person to get a cloud of poisonous residue. I think this scheme is badly thought out. I think it's been done on the cheap. I think that it is there to crowd out other facilities. It is smaller than the colliery methane plants that have recently been closed. On that grounds, whatever you think about the environment, you're spoiling the green belt with a much better brownfield options on a much bigger scale that create work and income for our city council, because we do need the money to fund local services. This is not a sensible proposition. On that basis, I would urge all of you to oppose it. Thank you.
Could I just add a little bit to what Mike has just said about the battery hazards? I did actually ask at the consultation meeting, had any actually already caught fire, to which they said, I think 2, but none of them were on our installations, which didn't give me a great deal of confidence, because to replace a village like Hooton, Pagnell, should there be a hazardous battery problem and fire be created, it would be impossible because of the historical value and character of the village, and Mar, and Broadsworth, and Bilham, and so on. Not only that, insurers would only be too happy to up all our property insurance policies. Because once something hazardous like that is close by, then they will know that and they will jump on it. And so we can all look forward to quite a hefty increase in building insurance. Going away from that, I'd like to say that the government are working more in recent days to what they call a rooftop revolution. And because of this, what they have done, they have lifted certain legal requirements to make it easier to go through the planning process, to make rooftop installations on social housing, on public buildings, on industrial units, on hospitals and so on. We round here, we already have the huge Amazon building, we have the next building, who had to actually put in their own infrastructure, i.e. the roads, because they weren't fit, the existing roads weren't fit to actually build those warehouses. I've made sure in my letter that I have already submitted, if anybody would like to see, it's a very lengthy letter that includes what I consider to be a lot of very useful information. If anybody would like to have a look at it or a copy of it, I'm more than happy to forward it before you make your opinions. But the rooftop revolution is encouraging people not to, developers not to use the land, but to use existing buildings. And that to me just makes so much more sense than putting something 21st century installation in a village of this kind, and in Brodsworth, of which, you know, they're very close to our hearts. And so for those reasons, and for many more reasons, which are included in my letter that I want other people to have a chance to see this evening, I'm very much against the proposition.
Thanks, Leah. So before I invite anybody else to speak, has everybody put, if they wanted to, an opinion in this box? Yeah. Because we've run out of paper.
And if you haven't, if you want to by the end, please come and find us.
Yeah, okay. So anyone else want the...
Mine's only very short.
No, it's fine, Dean, go for it.
I have had solar put in the village. I don't know if I'm the only one, I'm not sure. But my house is a fully electric house. And my planning was delayed, and I hope the conservation officer is still the same conservation officer. I was aware that it couldn't be viewed from the road, from any angle, being in a conservation area, which it doesn't. But my proposal was delayed 10 months because of the school and parents who may be visiting the school. And it was delayed for 10 months because of what the parents may feel by driving to the school and seeing solar. And so let's just hope that the same conservation officer is still present at the council. And the other thing is that anybody who does send in a letter, do not just sign something, a photostat copy of someone else's, because if you do, it only counts as one objection. So if we all sign the same sheet, it's only one objection.
Right. You have to slightly reword it, Dean.
If it looks the same,
Yeah.
it classes the same.
Yeah, I've written in excess of 40 letters that are all worded differently, focusing on different things. So if anybody wants to sign one, this is specifically for the Morehouse one, it just needs a name, address and a signature, because to your point, you can't just have a petition, because if you've got 1,000 signatures, it's still only one objection. They have to be individual, and you can't do one letter that covers all the points and photocopy it. They all have to be separate objections.
Just one other short note. My business is where Parish Power Station is, and my family have lived there for generations. And for 40 years that power station was closing, and we couldn't wait for this power station to eventually close. And when it does close, we then get a gas power station, we get a wood power station, and we get a polythene burning station. And why I'm saying that is because we've got wind turbines here, and once a poor area gets something given, you get a lot more given after that. It doesn't just... We've got enough already, so let somebody else who hasn't got nothing have something.
I agree.
That's my view.
Just come back from France, and whilst I've been over there, done a bit of looking about, and through their government there's a hell of a lot of commercial solar panels integrated into the commercial structure. Backed by the government, the buildings paid for by the government, so long as they've got solar panels on them. Notwithstanding that, also with farm buildings and all that sort of stuff, they've got buildings paid for, so long as they've got solar panels on the same. Another item which I think's, I'm going to say hearsay, and maybe one or two of you may be able to help me up a bit. Through the grapevine, I've heard that solar farms, there's an act started to gather momentum through the government that solar farms have got to be at least 1.8 miles away from any residential areas. So I'm totally in favour of what everybody said, totally disagree with the proposal. I just think that is something that's utmost valuable to us to push and push and push. Now, if you're going to say it's going to take 3 years before it goes through Parliament, I think it ought to be within the context that we make sure that we try to get that through on that basis. Can anybody enlighten me if that's just hearsay or not?
Just 1 second, Brian, is that something new? No. Okay.
I think it's mostly for the sort of the battery sort of ones that they're sort of talking about. But I will research it, and I think anybody who wants to, anything that's been said this evening, I think you should research whatever you come up with and do as much research on it as you can, because we need to be putting in your objections. The other thing is, and I don't know, we don't want to be putting any objections in until the battery put it in for planning.
Yeah, so just another point.
That is important.
Yeah, just another point as well. I reached out to a gentleman that's part of the Conisbrough solar farm proposition who's activist against it. So we've got a meeting with him. Yeah, so he's already done a lot of work. Obviously it's a much bigger proposition that they've got going on, but he's happy to support us and share best practice on the things that they've done to try and object, etc. And so we can update on that after that meeting as well. So thanks, Brian. Anybody else want to?
So you really, if this is a solar park or a solar farm, then the difference between the two is that one has batteries and the others feed straight onto the national grid.
Yes.
So,
But they still have batteries.
in that case, do we have a better chance of screwing it
It's a nice term.
because of the battery situation?
Yes.
So is it all about the batteries?
No, it's not all about the
It's
batteries.
not.
No.
The other thing I'll bring up here is about the village itself.
Yeah.
And there are, believe it or not, about 90 units in this village, of which less than half belong to private individuals.
Correct.
The other belongs to the estate.
Yeah.
So it's less than 50%. Is it so on account, would it be per individual property or per individual who's renting a property or just passing by?
Are you talking about the objection?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. The objections goes on the people. You see, say for instance, take Mar, they've got an awful lot of objections, letters, but a lot of the letters come from the farm shop, that, people feel that the farm shop business will be ruined because it will be either side of the lane, this sort of thing. So it's individuals, so it's definitely individuals, not properties.
Similarly, at Moor House, there's the equestrian centre. So everybody that visits the equestrian centre, anybody that goes, whether they're delivering oil, because they're still going to have to get down the lanes with the track, whether they're clients or whatever, anybody
can
Right,
object.
okay.
So your relatives, anybody that wants to put in a letter of objection, wonderful.
And I understood it was community groups as well, so the cricket club, for example, could
Yeah,
put in an
community,
objection.
yeah.
Parish council.
Right.
could put an
Parish
objection.
council.
1903 as a
yeah,
business can put
yeah.
in an objection.
Yeah.
But is it not a fact that you only need 5 objections for it to go, that it then goes to planning?
Right, 7, but that wouldn't wash on a sort of a thing like this, in as much as it wouldn't show enough public feeling. Don't get any apathy about not putting it in. It has got to go to planning.
Yeah.
You know, you want as many letters in as possible. That is very strong. The other thing that is very strong, and I will ask some of you if you will do this, is that on the 28th, when it's the MAR planning application, if any of you have got an hour that you want to spare and sit in Doncaster Council and actually see what happens at the planning, you would be most welcome, because that sends a powerful message as well, that actually people have turned out because they feel so strongly. So the planning committee sit there, and then when they see all these sea of people, they think, oh my word, you know, it sends a clear message. You know, it's not just 5 or 7.
No.
You
Would
know.
it be possible to put details of that meeting, please, on our WhatsApp group?
As soon as I know that it is definite, they're working towards that date, but I don't know for definite. She said she's working towards that date, otherwise it will be the fortnight after, which that'll be the beginning of August. But it's always a Tuesday.
We'll get that.
And it's Tuesday afternoon, but I will let you know, and I would be very grateful for you to sort of turn up. And you'd also get an idea what it is like in a planning meeting.
Michael?
Point of information, just to take the point Dave there, speaking to people in the industry, without the batteries, the payback period is over 15 years. These panels deteriorate by 1% each year. So actually, no reputable major company is building solar panels now without batteries. So that is an important point. With the batteries, you double the rate of return and you halve the payback time. That's why the batteries are so important to the developers. At this point in time, the law may change, but at this point in time, the 800 metre exclusion zone around a wind turbine, due to the disruption caused by the electric fields, does not apply. And government are looking at guidance on batteries. I think batteries have suddenly taken the powers that be a bit by surprise. I don't think anyone ever dreamt that people would be putting large-scale industrial batteries in the middle of nowhere. So just a point of information, Dave, if you kill the batteries, you kill the site. But wait for it.
How dangerous are these batteries?
They catch fire.
Well, if they catch fire, the advice I was given, I'll be careful, because it was a private meeting from one of our members, but it was there with companies, was don't let yourself stand downwind of a battery that's on fire, because you could be prosecuted. It's the fumes. The other problem with a burning battery is it burns from inside, and that's why you have problems with electric vehicles that catch fire, that the fire brigade turn out, think they put the fire out, drive off, and then it ignites again. Batteries can be extremely dangerous, and that's why you need a far more robust safety plan now. I know a bloke who lives a mile away, an hour away, who will come and look at it. If they catch fire, it is a significant risk, and it's a risk that large-scale power stations will not be allowed to do.
And just for information, the Hooton Pagnell, on the plans that we saw at the consultation, their batteries are sort of dispersed throughout the entire site. The Morehouse site, as you go into South Emsall, the field on the left, just past the station house, that will be a complete field full of batteries. They will all be in one place. So imagine one of those going off.
Are they all from China?
Sorry, go on. Sorry, go on. In Hooton Pagnell,
These farms are going to remain.
so Mark Norbury owns the land for Hooton Pagnell.
Brodsworth Estate, which is managed by Savills, owns the one at Mar, and the other one is Jeff Cook,
Jeff
who
Cook
owns the one at
owns the one
Morehouse.
Okay.
So landowners,
Presumably they all think it's a good thing.
It's very lucrative for them.
You probably make 5 times the return versus as farmland.
Is that what it is?
About
Yeah.
5 times.
Yeah, it's very lucrative for
But very sad that they're not.
It is.
Particularly with Hooton Pagnell, where Mark derives a lot of income from these rented properties, and he is obviously not giving any consideration to the people that are currently feeding him at all, which is very
Can I ask therefore?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to say this, but I'm going to. Is it not a complete conflict of interest that Mark Ward Norbury is sat on the parish council if in the current climate?
so Mark obviously isn't at the meeting tonight for that very reason. I'm not going to answer that. That's up to the people in this room to make that decision. If you're not comfortable with Mark being on your parish council, then that's something that you need to take an action for.
And
What is the action?
what is the action?
Well, I guess that would be, Peter, that people would put that in writing to you.
No, it would be down to Mark as an individual. The elections just happened. It was unopposed. All the existing parish councils were re-elected unopposed.
At that
So-
time, though, Peter, no one really knew that there was this conflict of interest.
Full stop.
Well,
No,
that's
at all.
that's irrelevant at this stage.
Yeah.
I mean, you could write into the parish council with your opinions and.
We could present those to Mark.
And we could make your thoughts known to Mark, but we can't force him to resign. That would be up to him.
As standard practice so for example, he's put in many planning applications to do with the hall and all the rest of it, and he's always, you have to disclose your conflict of interest and leave when anything's been discussed. So in terms of the architecture of parish council, the same principle would apply unless there is a movement elsewhere to change that.
So does that mean that any correspondence that's generated by yourselves as a PC is for him to see? So if we have a strategy, he gets the chance to look at it.
As Sarah said, that during the parish council meetings, if there are any issues that might create a conflict of interest, then Mark has to declare that, and he isn't allowed to stop in the meeting. He's got to remove himself. So he doesn't become part of the discussion when we're talking about those issues. However, the minutes of the meetings are made public. They're on the website, and any resolutions that the parish council makes, with or without Mark being present, are available for people to read.
Yeah.
But I think the important takeaway, Brian, is that the parish council obviously has a role to play, depending on what everyone has submitted into the magic box, which we will find.
Yeah.
But if there is to be concerted opposition to this, it is probably not appropriate that the parish council is the leading vehicle for that.
That's exactly what I'm looking to.
So
That's exactly what
we haven't got to the strategy part yet, but just whilst we're talking about it, we would probably suggest that there is a steering group in the village, aside from we can object as a parish council, but obviously as a residents group, that only people that wanted to be in that would be in, and obviously then that would be more confidential to what those plans are, probably a separate WhatsApp group, and however you wanted to run that. So that would be our view. Obviously, if the majority in the room is that we want to object, the parish council will do that also on the residents' behalf, but we would need extra support because it will be quite a difficult battle.
And I think that's the only thing really that Mark would see the details of, is whatever the parish council writes from the parish council as the objection, not whatever words or actions the village and residents are taking.
And to be clear, that's the purpose of this meeting, is to get
to that point.
your view, so as a parish council we can present that. Mark at that point has no input because we're representing you.
I think what Steph said about the steering party, that's the way to do it, so it comes out of.
Totally agree.
Steph, do you mind if I just say something?
Yeah, of course, sorry.
Hi, Oliver Gore, just recently elected for Reform, so just thank you if anyone voted for me. I've come mainly to listen to all your opinions, which I already knew which way we're going to go, and it's gone that way. But there's one thing that's not been mentioned, which I did ask in the consultancy, that is a massive factor here, and it's the crime that comes with it. Already the wind farms, there's national crime groups going round now, breaking into the sites, burning the doors off and climbing to the top of them to chop the copper cables out and drag them out of the site. Now, if they're going to do that 200 foot in the air, they're going to do it on the ground. When I asked the question at the consultancy, they said they're putting a deer fence around it with off-site monitoring. Now, that ain't stopping no one. So this is also going to attract criminals and theft in the area around it. And the more you've got, the more people you get in come.
That obviously shuts off the cooling systems for the batteries.
Yeah. As soon as they put a spike straight through all the copper cables, earths it, and fires and theft.
The other thing is if they smash the panels, or indeed Storm Darragh last year smashed a lot of panels with bad weather, with hail, they then obviously leach toxic chemicals into the ground, which means that in 40 years, not that I'll be here, but it wouldn't really be able to go back to farming land.
Sue, was there something else you had?
Just really quickly before we get on to
about property value.
So just on what you were saying about deer fencing and privacy, the one at Morehouse, for those of you that know Morehouse, we're the first cottage as you come down the hill on the right, and it will be in the field immediately adjacent to the property. So not only have we got crime literally on the doorstep, but we've also got lots of privacy because the boundary will be monitored by CCTV. Our bedroom looks straight over into that field. So, I'm all for a kilometre rather, never mind 1.8, anything that says it's got to be as far away as possible. But, they're just dangerous.
Okay. So, as I said at the start, we've got a hard stop at 7:30 and we want to just talk about what the strategy is going to be going forward. We've counted all the results, etc. So, anybody want to say anything really quickly before we move on to...
Just says here that you've got to be within a 3-phase power line. Have we got one now?
Charlie?
Yeah, it's a 66 kV line on that field what's proposed. So there is the infrastructure there,
yeah.
There is one there, so.
It says the infrastructure there.
It is, I've looked at work.
Just very quickly what Sarah wanted to ask me and I didn't answer about property values. We had somebody out to value our cottage and said, how much is it worth? X amount, thank you very much. They're going to build a solar farm in that field next door, 20%.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Sorry, did you want to say something?
I was supporting Brian's comment about the distance between the park and houses.
Residents, yeah.
And it's actually, if you Google it, it's 2 kilometres.
Oh, really? Okay.
Which is about 1.6 miles.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else want to raise anything right now?
I think it is 1.6 miles.
Yeah, okay. So I think it's been a really informed meeting. Everybody's got some really strong opinions, obviously. So I will tell you that I don't know how many people are in the room, because I've not looked at the register, but we've got 41 people in this room against this proposition, 2 people for it, and 1 person that's undecided. So I would suggest that creates a majority of opinion in the room. So I think that's a really strong position. So now, pretty much, again, as we've said, the Parish Council will oppose on that basis. We can't do that on our own. We do need the support of everybody else and as residents and whatever. So I don't know how you want to... Do you want to be a part of the steering group, Matthew? Do you want to... anybody in the room?
I always have the same opinions as you may or may not know. I'm chair of the Board of Governors at Oakfield Park School, the special needs school in Ackworth as well. I've always had the opinion that I always serve only if people want me to serve. If people would like me to be on the steering committee, I'm very happy to give back to the community and be on the steering committee. Equally, if there are people that are more eloquent or have more vested interest in this than I do, or indeed might have more time to commit to something like this than I do, I would be very happy to defer to somebody else to do it. But equivalently, if people would like me to stand on a steering committee, I would be very willing to.
Good group.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I mean, I think there's a few things that have to happen now. One is, I don't know whether people prefer WhatsApp or whether they prefer, you know, and kind of email and a mailing list, but there's got to be some way for us to, you know, kind of communicate with each other, because I think with all of this being coordinated, I think, you know, Cynthia made reference to that with Mar, like, if you are unified and take action together, and you're more likely to have an impact and, you know, hopefully get this stopped. So there's certainly something about setting up a WhatsApp group. I know that I am not very active on social media, so I may well not be the person to set it up, but I can do. And if you would like to join, we will find a way such that, you know, people can join. Hopefully everyone knows where I live in the village and can get my number somehow.
Where's the register?
And we have the register. And if you want to be on that WhatsApp group, maybe you could tick on the register that you'd like to be on it, and then I can invite you. That might be a very simple way. The second thing is the consultation period is the kind of open consultation on the plans as they currently exist is open until July the 14th. Now at this stage, it's nothing about sending feedback to the council or anything like that. In fact, Cynthia, I did exactly the wrong thing and sent something to a very nice lady at the council, but she did send me a very nice message, a very nice reply. And she said, at the moment, I'm really sorry, but it's not open for any members of the public to give feedback. However, it is open to give feedback to the developers. And I think there is something that says, making clear the strength of feeling against this and any other project in the local area can only be effective. I've seen in the past when solar farm developers have gone to kind of open consultation, quite often they have ended up publishing either statistics about how many people have fed back or not, or indeed printed the feedback that they have received, because they see that kind of transparency might earn them favours when it gets to planning. So, like, all of these things about kind of really making sure that you send in feedback is really important. I've got a card here.
Feedback forms here if anybody wants one.
Or if I'm honest, it might be far easier just to email them. There is an email address you can send it to. They will send you a receipt. It looks as though they read the feedback that I gave them, because they did make a couple of points. You know, kind of.
I've just sent mine today, and the acknowledged receipt of it, and said they will respond within 5 days.
Yeah. So I highly recommend sending your response to the public consultation, and it must be done before the 14th of July. After that, they can ignore anything. Monday. In English, Monday. After that, they can totally ignore it. They can do whatever they like with it. But before that, they have to, kind of take it on board. I guess then the other thing is, again, which Cynthia kind of and others have made reference to, I think there is kind of strength in numbers, and obviously here in Hooton Pagnell we are only a very small village, so I really do encourage you to, if you have friends in Hickleton, Clayton, Brodsworth, Morehouse, South Emsall, Sprotborough, make sure that you have got in touch with them, and that not only do you encourage them to give feedback on our scheme, but you also help them out and kind of give feedback on their schemes as well. I think the same is true with any kind of local organisations, businesses. Encourage them as well to kind of give feedback and how it might affect them.
Has the school said anything, Matthew?
I haven't heard anything, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's anyone here that has a closer relationship with the school.
The only thing that I did hear was when I went to the consultation, I said, because they said they were going to give this, what I actually call bride money, to the village for use in development of anything that we wanted or that we would find useful. They did say that the school had said that they would want a hub of some description. What that is, I've no idea.
Yeah, it's 310,000.
Well,
I told them that 310,000 was absolutely peanuts.
I mean, over 40 years. I mean, anyone that kind of works out inflation in 40 years' time, it's probably not worth enough to buy a loaf of bread. But, you know...
Who would control that?
And there's nothing saying that it would all go to Hooton Pagnell. I mean, there's plenty of other villages in the local area where I'm sure they would want to make a compelling case that they are entitled to part of 310. So 310,000 over 40 years. It sounds like a lot of money, but I promise you it's not actually a lot of money.
Buying a house in Hooton Pagnell.
Don't forget a song.
I think the final thing to say is, at some point down the line, well, there may be a plan going, obviously, in Moorhouse. There may be a plan going in Hooton Pagnell. All I can say is when it comes in, oppose it as strongly as possible. But if you are a member of the kind of WhatsApp group and are able to see all the kind of communication, we'll let you know as soon as it's going on. You can already kind of see, actually, I've got to give Doncaster Council, you know, their due. You can see the kind of wheels of kind of transparency turning already as different people within the council give their feedback on the application as it goes in at the moment. As I say, what's in at the moment is called a scoping application broadly, where the council has to decide whether they have to do an environmental impact assessment on the project or not. I would hope they do. I made in the letter, which I'm sure she read, but officially didn't have to take on board, I made a very passionate argument as to why there should be an environmental impact assessment on this project.
It could be some time before the planning goes in for the Hooton Pagnell one. The Moorhouse one is imminent, but to your point, you can only object when the planning gone in, but you only have 3 weeks. They can take 3 years to sort their plan out to perfect it, but you only have 3 weeks to get either your letter or online objection in. So, you know, getting all the ducks in the row and getting them, you know, stacked up, ready to go is the way to go.
The other thing, which again I took as a bit of an indirect lesson from Mar, but I think is also relevant here, and particularly with these developers, is anything that, you know, we can do to, and this is a slightly strategic conversation, but to slow this down will be extremely undesirable to them. I mean, at the end of the day, as I say, this is the developers behind this scheme are basically looking for a financial return. I would argue that the only net green benefit involved with this is money. For certain parties involved, of course.
Sorry, Matthew, can we just let Hannah speak?
Yeah, sorry.
On the consultation period, well, the initial consultation period will be something like 3 weeks. Often if an application's ongoing for 3 years, there'll be revised plans, and that opens another consultation period, and it's often extended beyond 3 weeks anyway. So, like, we would want to aim for that date, but if someone misses that date, I wouldn't necessarily say don't submit your objection, because the council would consider it in any event.
But I think kind of delaying it as much as is possible is a very valuable strategy, because as I say, if you want a quick return, it makes it more costly, it makes it harder, it makes it more likely that you'd go for easier projects than these ones, or where you've kind of got opposition to them. And I think exactly, you raised a good point, Hannah, about actually the art of opposing these projects. The best way to oppose these projects is on the facts. Again, I've been trying to follow the Mar case. It is, in some ways, it is reassuring that the planning council at Doncaster definitely do their job, because if you actually read all the documents, there's over 1,000 documents to read now. In some ways, it's a bit of a disaster for local democracy, because how any people are really meant to engage with 1,000 documents is beyond me, besides perhaps feeding it into ChatGPT and getting a nice summary of actually what's going on. But as I say, if you challenge it on the facts, then the council and the planning department is forced to basically act on those facts that you've presented and get more evidence and whatever the case may be. So really, I know sometimes it is easy to get emotional about projects, and you know, it's natural because we all love, you know, the village that we live in the local area. But when you do, you know, put in your opposition, don't just appeal to that, appeal to the facts as well, because it will make a big difference.
Thanks, Matthew. So just to wrap up, so obviously anybody's welcome to stay. We've got a Parish Council meeting now. Just a huge thank you to everybody that's made the effort to come out tonight, because obviously we needed that. We needed to understand what the views of people that live here are, and now we've got a very clear view of that, so we can move that forward. So thank you.
I was going to get people to volunteer to be part of the
Matthew's going to take you around. Matthew, we'll leave that with you. If you need some support from us, then let us know. Obviously, we would all be more than happy to be in the WhatsApp group with you. 100%. And then if you need any help, then
Well, if anyone would like to, you hopefully know where I live. I don't know if giving out my address, of course, is sensible, but I live down at Lowfold, the second to last house on the right as you go towards Clayton.
Well, we're meeting there once every week.
Or if you catch me on one of my brothers, you'll get a bonus point.
If you keep up, you get even more.
Exactly that. So, unless anybody's got anything else they want to say, just a massive thanks, like I say, for coming in, because it's been really important. Oh, Sarah needs to register.
I certainly haven't filled it in, so I don't know if everyone has had an opportunity to fill in the register or not.
I don't know where it is. We don't know where it is. Who's got it? This chap wants to. Sorry. Thank you.
Would anybody like to put their name, address and signature to a letter of objection for the Morehouse one while they're here?
Yeah.
If you want to name and address at the top and signature and name at the bottom, and if you just put it underneath, and when they've run out, they've run out. Is that all right? Thank you. I've read twice different versions of the same thing. Seriously.
They all